Junk.
There's a special place in the human soul for cranes. Essentially, they are nothing more than those long-necked water birds that occur in most countries of the world. They are skilled flyers, can soar for miles, riding updrafts that millennia of evolution have taught them to find and use in their often lengthy migrations. Like many other birds, they regularly travel great distances to find breeding and feeding grounds. Cranes are among the largest of all birds, and because of a tricky convolution in their windpipes, they are, when they choose to be, among the noisiest. But it's not their size, their flying ability, or their raucous cries that have endeared cranes to us. It's for reasons connected to their freedom of spirit, their grace, their courage, and their devotion to each other that these beautiful birds have over many centuries and many lands become important symbols of fidelity, good luck, and long life. If you can count 1,000 cranes, say the myths of the Orient, you will live 1,000 years. And yet, in spite of the high esteem in which they've long been held, life for cranes in recent years has not been easy. Even here in Japan, where cranes have played a major role in mythology and art for at least 1,000 years, the Grus japonensis, the red-crowned Japanese crane, has been threatened with extinction. The problem has been one of space. Cranes need a lot of it. They are big birds with large appetites. A single breeding pair needs up to 800 hectares of land, around 2,000 acres, if they are to be successful at raising young. Japan's North Island of Hokkaido had been traditional breeding grounds for Japanese cranes for centuries. Then settlers and developers from the South Islands moved in. Wild land became scarce, and so did the cranes. Finally, when the crane population fell to mere dozens, a sanctuary was created. A place where at least a few of these graceful creatures would be safe from major intrusions on their private lives. Where once they went south for the winter and returned here to mate and nest, they now stay close to this small patch of land year-round. When the snow is deep and food is scarce, they rely on the largesse of the keeper, to whom they are sometimes less than gracious. His prodding beak can kill a frog or a snake. You can tell a crane from a heron or a stork by the bare patch on the top of its head, usually a distinctive red. In the wilds, cranes will eat whatever is in season, from fish to toads to the roots of aquatic plants. Here they eat what they're given, though they retain a certain dignity by washing the handouts thoroughly before devouring them. One aspect of crane behavior that has given them such a significant place in the human psyche is the charming, even poignant way that crane couples are devoted to one another. They are monogamous. They pair off when about 3 years old and stay together for life. Though the legendary 1,000 years is a bit beyond even their expectations, cranes have been known to live for 50 years and longer. When a crane dies, His or her mate may stay close to the body for many weeks, bringing it food, and obviously mourning the loss. Another number that has always delighted human observers is the famous crane duet. This pair is just practicing. Older cranes do it so skillfully, it sounds like a single bird. And so, the cranes of Hokkaido pass another winter day. This protected place is called the Kushiro Sanctuary. At night, the members of the crane colony huddle together for mutual warmth and protection. In the true wilds, the paired couples would pass the winter together as a group, while the young bachelors and maidens, not yet sexually mature, would be off in their own flock, perhaps many miles away. Here they've adapted their lifestyles to suit the circumstances. Hokkaido's winter is similar to that of much of Canada. It arrives in earnest in November. And it's pretty well gone by April, leaving the branches still winter bare and the reeds and grasses underfoot a soggy mass. But the days are longer now, and the earth is basking in the renewal of warmth. And that old familiar feeling is beginning to stir in the hormones of the cranes. It's spring, and it's time to make a nest. They work together, going about the task with their usual measured stateliness. It's as though they realize that everything about parenthood is a serious business, one that will take both of them to handle if it is to be done properly. The nest completed, she lays her eggs with a minimum of ceremony, knowing that between her and her mate, they will have to be tended and protected for the next 28 to 30 days. For even here in a sanctuary, there are those to whom a crane egg would be a nutritious delicacy. However, for all the care they might take, for all the effort they may put into shielding the eggs from harm, the new parents here in the Kushiro Reserve have only a small chance of actually raising chicks. The reproduction success rate in such places is notoriously small. The keeper is searching for the nest. He suspects the eggs may need help. The cranes try to distract him and lure him away with the familiar ruse of the injured wing. But he's seen that one before. As it turned out, the eggs were in trouble. The life within them is surviving only with the help of an incubator. One embryo, ready to hatch, has managed to begin breaking out, but lacks the strength to go further than making a small hole in the shell. Its life hangs in the balance. Its only hope is human aid, which the experienced keeper gladly provides. It's a delicate business. The chick, though a good size, is only now making its first attempts to sustain life on its own. to it, this is a completely new and perhaps dangerous world. A wet and soggy mass, it is nonetheless a living, shivering being. With the aid of helping hands, the miracle of birth is taking place. Almost equally miraculous is the speed with which the newly hatched crane gains strength and self-sufficiency. In the wilderness, they leave the nest within a few hours. Within days, he'll be foraging on his own, a miniature crane, facing the world with courage and determination. Now is when the large size of those eggs and a relatively long period of sitting on the nest pays off for the parent cranes. The chicks are able to fend for themselves right from the word go. Unlike those bird species in which the young remain helpless in the nest for weeks, their mouths open and crying out for worms, baby cranes are active almost immediately. Active, and like the young of many of the Earth's creatures, already endearing. From day one, a new crane is eager to explore an exciting world in which everything he sees, or touches, or smells, or feels is, for him, brand spanking new. Crane chicks stick close to their tall parents for 9 months or more. During that time, the adults will be attentive, will offer what protection they can. But their main function will be as role models. From them, the chicks will learn the many fine points of crane behavior. But right from the beginning, the young are active, bold, and independent. This is, of course, a matter of evolution. In virtually all animal species, the first few hours, days, and weeks of life are by far the most dangerous. In many cases, mortality during this period can run up to 90 to 99%. For some birds and other animals, being helpless when young, being kept well protected, or hidden in nests provides the best chance of survival. For others, like the bold young crane, being independent from the start has proved, over millions of generations, to be the safest course of action. Even without the help of a nearby parent, crane chicks are already able to spot and avoid predators, are perfectly capable of finding their own food. They are already survivors. The chicks are still, however, very young, brave, even intrepid, but inexperienced. And awfully small in a big world. For some time yet, the adults will be close by, keeping their parental eyes peeled for possible threats to their offspring. The beak is sharp, and so are the eyes. Which is just as well, for threats to small creatures are everywhere. Here, as everywhere in the wilderness, the price of life itself is eternal vigilance. But even that may not be nearly enough, for the real threat to the very existence of cranes everywhere has been the continual shrinkage in the amount of suitable habitat. The problem for cranes and their families is loss of feeding range, loss of privacy, loss of the particular type of marshy land on which these gentle giants have been bred over millennia to depend. The problem is loss of wilderness. Soon, even in the most remote parts of the world, they will have nowhere left to turn. Even here, in their Japanese sanctuary, their continued safety is by no means assured. There are those who see these marshlands as wasted acres, places that could be drained and turned into fertile fields, where crops could be grown, where profit could be made. Fortunately, in Japan, as in many parts of the world, there is a growing awareness of the value of wild nature, of the importance of cherishing all of its aspects. Back when the Kushiro Reserve was established, the Japanese crane was headed for extinction. The irony was that while its place in Japanese folklore was assured, it had been given special status by ruling shoguns as far back as the 12th century. The actual creature was now rarely seen in the Japanese landscape. There was still wilderness, still bees and flowers, but though its likeness abounded in paintings and drawings throughout the culture, the living crane had become a great rarity. Now in the Kushiro district, if nowhere else, the crane population is making a tentative, hesitant recovery. There are now some 200 breeding pairs, but the success rate of their breeding is disturbingly low. Some blame pesticides. Others point to the rechanneling of rivers and consequent upsetting of food supplies in the marshes. A hopeful note for the cranes of tomorrow. Japan's amateur birding societies have been growing in size and power recently. And local school children have taken to coming here to feed what have become Kushiro's favorite feathered inhabitants. But the future of the Japanese crane is still anything but certain. Though biologists around the world have studied cranes extensively, they remain wild, mysterious creatures. No one knows exactly what to do to help them rebuild their once strong populations. Nature is a complex web, and a threatened gene pool may be hard to save. Here, as in many other countries, it is the works of man that have brought yet another creature close to the end of its road. With luck and much effort, other men's goodwill may bring it back. Cranes are migratory by nature, some flying enormous distances between their winter and summer grounds. The cranes of Kushiro have learned to overcome that instinct. Over 100 years ago, the emperor of the day opened long isolated Japan to the outside world. Among other results of that historic move was an influx of European hunters. Where previously hunting had been the preserve of the very rich, and they used hawks for killing cranes, the Europeans brought guns and set many birds and other animals on the road to extinction. Industrialization, urban sprawl, and general encroachment finished the job in all too many cases. A few cranes escaped simply by not migrating south into danger. It's their descendants that now perform the famous Dance of the Happy Cranes here in the Kushiro Sanctuary. These two are definitely a couple. Their moves are well rehearsed and their pleasure in each other's company is evident. An intruder trying to cut in is given a very cold shoulder. There's much to admire about cranes, even beyond their unmatched skill as high-stepping dancers. Their stature is imposing, their gait a model of dignity and restraint. Their grace when airborne is a delight to the eye. They've become such a popular adornment of the landscape here in the nature reserve that visitors travel over an hour by bus to come here and enjoy their company. Theirs and that of the white-tailed deer. But what may be the best show of all is a private one. The longtime keeper here at Koshiro has evolved a strange private language with which he has established a mysterious, almost seance-like communication with these giant lords of the marsh. It's a mixture of crane talk and local Hokkaido dialect. They respond to it by weaving a pattern of movements that one can easily imagine as the rhythmic chanting goes on that are telling stories of magic and mystery in the crane world. Tribal stories that go back thousands of years to a time when the crane was the dominant life form on these Asian islands. Of course, cranes don't tell stories. But if they did, what would they say about the treatment they and a lot of other animals have received at the hands of man? That story would not be a pretty one. But on the other hand, the cranes are still dancing. Here in Koshiro, anyway.
A whole hour of wildlife tomorrow when we meet the Komodo dragons of Indonesia at 8 o'clock.